Hi, welcome to Facilities First. My name's Paul McCarthy. We're sponsored by Hero Facility Services. Today's guest is not just another name in facilities, he's a Marine. So, that alone will tell you about his discipline, his grit, and how he takes ownership of everything. So, I'd like to welcome Tim Woolfrey, my brother, to the screen. Tim,
Oh,
first of all, brother, thank you for your service.
it was an honor.
I always tell people at 18, nobody was going to get me to sign on the dotted line. And when you guys did, and I appreciate that.
Yes,
So,
sir.
speaking of signing on the dotted line, little birdie told me something that's kind of ironic. You come from a long line of Marines in your family, right?
That's correct. My whole family, actually, my dad,
Okay.
my uncles, all of them.
And we all know that Marines never say they have that letter that goes like that in front of them. They always say, once a Marine, always a Marine, right?
That's absolutely.
What happens when your son signs up for the Army?
Yeah, well, you know, um, everybody makes their life choices. We give him a bunch of crap about it in the family, and he likes to say the army's better, but he's got a family of Marines against him, so
He's kind of outnumbered.
yeah, a little bit.
So, what would what was it like as a father? I mean, because as fathers, we always want to see our children succeed, and even though it stung a little bit going to the army, what was it like as a father knowing that your son was serving our country?
You know, um, there's always a lot of pride that goes with it, right? So very proud of him for what he's done. But there's also a fear factor that comes with that. I spent several years in combat in the Middle East, and knowing that he would end up kind of in a similar situation at the time, in fact, very similar. um, it was a little nerve-wracking, right?
Yeah,
You know, it gave me a taste of what I put my parents through.
yeah, yeah. And once again, I can't thank you enough from all of us. I mean, it's but to both your son and your family.
Yes, sir.
So let's jump in. I know that you are what I call a free agent right now. And,
Correct.
typically when I put out my little flyer, I put a brand name there. And on yours, people out there, if you want your brand name on there, he's ready for you. So
Uh-huh.
he's got a wealth of experience and knowing the military like I do. You brought lessons from your time in the military to facilities. And so, what kind of lessons did you use from your military that transitioned to your facility life?
Oh, I mean, so many, honestly. I mean, the military, specifically the Marines, all about, discipline and attention to detail and integrity and, all of those traits that, come with being a Marine. Um, I guess I would say a couple of the biggest, assets that I took from the Marine Corps is probably attention to detail, ownership, and then, reality is being the calm in the storm, right? Like the ability to live in a crisis situation and be able to keep a level head while everybody else is kind of freaking out, right?
Yep. And Tim, that's one of the reasons why I started facilities first, because people walk into a restaurant or they walk into a retail store and it looks all smooth and everything's going right. They don't realize the chaos and all the issues that those facility managers are having to deal with.
Yes,
I mean,
sir. It's always a behind the scenes job, right?
it really is. So once again, that's why I started this. Bring y'all to the forefront and show people and let people know what it's like for y'all. So moving from the core to the chaos of facilities, you did have combat action.
Mhm.
So you're used to being the calm in the storm. Do you think that gave you an extra leg up every time you dealt with emergency situation?
Oh, absolutely. More so than, most, honestly. I mean, you know, uh, combat being, obviously getting you to a place where you're able to maintain your focus and, think straight when, there's absolute chaos around you, people shelling and that kind of stuff. It's really was probably a main benefit of, that experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you went from actual shells to HVAC going out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you could hand a brand new facility manager a field manual, so to speak, what would be the number one rule for them?
Oh, I would say, and this is probably something speaking to what you put out is relationships. Like that is your biggest asset in facilities. You know, you can't do anything without your relationships with the operators, with your vendors, with your team. I mean, relationships is the real key to success in really just about any role, honestly.
That's so true. And that's one of the things that I think people are starting to miss more because of AI and other
Hmm.
features that we have. They're missing the
Right.
relational part because we are relational people. and
Correct.
and especially in your role as a facility manager, you not only have to have relationships with your operators, you have to have a relationship with your vendors. I mean, you're juggling many different personalities. Do you think the military kind of helped you learn how to handle different personalities as well?
Oh, absolutely. From command structure up and down in the military, it's I was a real young Marine, just fresh in, and I had to go before a board selection panel, which was really, traumatizing at the time, honestly. I was just a cadet, and I was sitting up there in front of generals, and that was very intimidating, right? And so you get to a point where you're able to communicate up and down a command structure like that, that is very beneficial to building relationships at all levels.
Awesome, awesome. So I'm gonna go back and rib you one more time because I really really like this story about an army son and a family of Marines. So when he starts telling his army stories, how does Dad one up him?
Oh, well. Well, the reality is I was an aviator, flight engineer, and pilot, and so it's not that difficult because his job was artillery. So, you know, I mean, I did actually fly, Fat Albert, which was with the Blue Angels, so it's not that difficult.
So literally, what's your son's name?
Andrew.
Andrew. Shots fired by Dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know from my experience and my background with a military nonprofit is there's a transition period coming from the military, especially for combat veterans, into the civilian world. And walk me through your path and how you transitioned from the military and ended up in facilities.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of people ask me that. I mean, I grew up doing construction. My dad was a contractor. And so there was that piece, but also my training in the military was as a pilot and flight engineer. Flight engineers have to be able to work with essentially every system on the aircraft, which is, pneumatic systems, hydraulic systems, fuel systems, electrical systems, all of that. Um, the training's pretty intense. You have to be able to draw those aircraft systems from memory schematically. So it helps you to operate the aircraft in flight, right? So that was a huge driving force. Like the background, the knowledge that I gained in that really did fit well into facilities. Um, Now that being said, getting out of the military is a huge transition. Generally, you go from getting saluted and having a chest full of medals and a bunch of you know, respect, to getting out where your military service becomes a check mark,
Mhm.
right? And so it's like, you know, it's hard to adjust to that, right? And then there's obvious things, right? Like the military, or one thing that I think should be obvious is that the military operates at such a fast pace that getting out, civilians really are just slow.
Mhm.
And so at everything, right? Driving slow, shopping slow, like everything. And so it's a big adjustment to kind of let go of that. Um, and military lingo and abbreviations and that kind of thing. Like, really getting used to being a civilian after spending 8 years in the Marines was a challenge.
I'm,
Um, but, I mean, I left aviation behind because I had a child and I needed to be around more, right? Um, and so I was looking for jobs where my skills would translate from aviation to something else. And I found a job posting that listed out, mechanical knowledge and hydraulics and those kind of things. And it was a facility manager role for Murray Calendars. And I went after it and I got it.
it's interesting. They say the older we get, the wiser we get, and I think you and I are approaching that wiser part. So,
Yeah.
what's changed the most since you started?
Oh man, technology really has changed the most. It's really driven so much as far as, the logics for lighting systems and, fire protection systems and, all of those kind of things have really advanced over the last, well, 20 years or so. I date myself a bit, but, you know, but yes, technology has been a huge advancement, and really has benefited facilities in a lot of ways. I mean, CMMS platforms are numerous now. Although none of them are perfect, they're all missing a little something, but there's so many to choose from, and you have to learn what you can live with and what you can live without. But it is a huge benefit to be able to track, warranties and equipment and asset management and those kind of things. And, your audits and your budget planning and future plans for CapEx and blah, blah, blah. Right.
S- So, you went from Excel spreadsheets to AI.
To an extent. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it amazes me how it continues to improve.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that goes back to my point is the more it continues to improve, the more the relationships are going to become important between people when they interact.
Yeah.
So I always ask everybody this because I know that y'all can have some of the craziest stories. So, what is one story that's either going to make you laugh your butt off or it's going to make you cry like a little baby in
Uh,
facilities?
a couple years ago, we had this thing, what meteorology has come up with all these new phrases over the years, right? But we had what they called that Arctic blast.
Mm.
And so I was director of facilities for Benihana restaurants at the time. And we had about 30 restaurants with frozen sprinkler pipes burst. And so about 30 restaurants on the morning of, before Christmas, right? Christmas, the morning before Christmas, literally like 30 something restaurants closed from like, we had a vestibule I've got a video of it, was a glass vestibule full of water. It was like a fish tank. It was crazy. So trying to get all those fire people out there in short time to get those things back up and, running, dried out, get the flooded material corrected, that was a nightmare.
Well, for those of y'all that don't know, and us DFW people, we call that Ice Mageddon. And what was it? Probably 5 days under 32 degrees that we dealt with. And
Hmm.
I was actually on residential side restoration. And I know that getting a restoration company out there, it was impossible.
Impossible.
And
Yeah,
so I'm sure that that probably put some grays in my hair and it probably put some grays in your hair because that was a challenging time.
it was that. So that makes me, you know, I think about it all the time, honestly.
You think about while you're trying to sleep,
Yeah, right.
those facility nightmares.
Indeed.
So you've been in this a while. What still fires you up about facilities?
I would say it's the fact that, it's a never-ending learning process, right? Like a lot of jobs you can get bored in, right? It's monotonous. It becomes, cyclical, right? Where facilities, there are obviously aspects that are cyclical and, kind of continue throughout time, but reality is it's ever changing. You've got new equipment, you've got new, regulations, you've got new, and so what you experience daily is different every single day. And so that's really what I love about facilities is that it's continually changing. And I get to be the hero, right? Like I get to be the guy that solves everybody's problems, and that is very rewarding,
Yeah.
regardless of, the thank you factor, which never happens. But
We're working on that. We're
yeah.
working on that. We're gonna get it out there that you guys need a little pat on the back every once in a while for everything y'all do. So this is kind of a fun question, especially in where you are in transition right now. If you could build the next 5 years for yourself, what would they look like?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, honestly, uh I would like to get involved with a brand that's fairly fresh and new, right? Where I could become embedded in that brand and really, finish my career as being, into retirement as the person that built that brand, right? So that's what my next 5, 10 years would look like ideally is that I get to build the department and make it operate, put in the systems that it would benefit that brand and help them grow and be scalable. Um, that would be ideal.
So if you want me to translate what he just said, he's ready to be the general of your facilities department, and he's ready to take you from little privates to a fighting war machine with your facilities department. So
Indeed.
now that's going to lead into another thing because as a leader of a facility team and being a Marine, we all know that Marines are the toughest. Sorry for all my other military friends, but the Marines are badasses. Um, how do you balance what some might say a gentler generation that you're starting to work with?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, honestly, uh in my time in the military, although, still being a Marine, really was developed around, when I did my final check ride, I was, graduating from flight school. I had a lieutenant colonel. I was a little behind on my pre-flight, and that lieutenant colonel, he came up to me. He's from the South, and he says, "You need some help with the windows up there on that, plane?" And I was like, "No, sir." And he says, "Oh, give me that rag." He's like, "I'm not above doing anything I would ask my Marines to do, right?"
Yep.
And that's kind of how I've lived my leadership style. Really, is you lead by example, right? You coach through, showing people how things work and how they work better.
Yep. Yep. And that's, it's funny. I always tell people that a boss will stunt your growth and a leader will water you. Because true leadership and especially, I mean, we can correlate it to the military all day long. If
Hmm.
you are a leader of a battalion and your guys will say, I will follow him into a firefight, that man's a leader.
Right.
And that's the same way when you're running a facilities department because you're going to have people that you're mentoring. You're going to have all different skill levels. And so at your stage in your career, your leadership is something that has been honed. And from
Mhm.
talking to you, I think you're a true nurturer and a selfless leader. So do you get soft at times? I'm messing with the Marine part because Marines,
I've always been accused of being overly sensitive by my family, right? And so I do indeed. Yeah. I mean, I have a hard time, being too tough on people, which is, can be a downfall, but I am more of a coach and a team player than a boss. I never call myself a boss. I always say we work together, right? And that's the reality. If you're not working together with your team and you're just the boss, then your team doesn't feel successful. They don't feel like they're growing. They don't feel like they're learning. They feel, less than, right? And that's never good for productivity, right? Like people need to feel accomplished. They need to feel like there's something ahead of them. And so, it is a beneficial position to be in to really help people grow and learn this field. This field is, like I said, ever changing. So you never stop learning,
Yeah.
right? It's a forever kind of thing. If somebody ever tells you they know everything there is about facilities, they're lying.
I was about to say you better run.
Yeah.
and and that's one of the things that leading a team is learning the different personalities and learning how that I've led before, and I know that some of my guys I can just give them a kick in the butt and say, "Come on, you can do better." But there are others that I might have to pat on the back.
Hmm.
So tell me about a team that you had. Tell me about your biggest project and why they still resonate with you today.
My biggest team project.
Biggest
Um,
biggest I'll say employee, not project, employee that you mentored. Let's say that.
Oh, I mean, I would say there was an individual quite a while ago, uh, that I helped to mentor and grow into a leadership role. Now they're far surpassed me, honestly. Not, you know, uh but by title, right? Like he's now a vice president of facilities for a major brand. Um, and we worked together for several years. He was a vendor, and then he became an employee, and then I got him to a place where he understood, how to put together new construction projects and budgets and things like that. And now he's running his own facilities department. So very proud of him.
I'm a big sports guy, and so I can compare it to the coaching tree. You have the Belichick tree, and you have all these trees. So we've got the Woolfrey tree, and I'm sure there's others out there that you've impacted in ways that you may not know yet. And I think that's one of the coolest things about a leader that's so rewarding is giving to others and developing them.
It is, yeah.
So we got time for some spitfires.
All
So
right.
I'm gonna ask you a question and tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. If there was one thing you could wave a magic wand at in facilities and have it go away forever, what would it be?
Go away forever. Um, wow. Okay. Um, well, shoot, that's tough. 'Cause there's a few. Um,
What's the first one that came to your mind?
I would say probably the fight for preventative maintenance programs, right? Like I would wish that everybody would just like recognize that they're necessary, right?
That's that's a great segue because let's talk about preventive maintenance because I know from my side, when I talk about preventive maintenance, I usually hear, oh, my units are only a couple years old. Oh, my units are fine. Oh, I've got a guy that checks them. I've heard it all. So, from a facility manager side, why is preventive maintenance so important?
Oh, I mean, it's no different than really. I like to relate this to, and this is how I kind of am able to communicate with more operators where they're not so technically inclined, is that I always relate it to your car, right? Because everybody drives car, right? Everybody knows they got to maintain their car. It's the same thing. You're going to change your oil every 3,000 miles or 10,000 miles, depending on whether it's synthetic or not. But no different really. It's like if you're going to change, you don't change your air filters, then the compressor runs hot. You don't clean your coils and it's not getting enough air. You don't, I mean, there's so many pieces of preventative maintenance, not just HVAC and refrigeration, but fire systems and, plumbing and you name it. And so reality is if you're not doing those things, then your equipment's not going to last. It's not going to meet its life expectancy.
It's one of those things you can't have nice toys if you don't take care of them.
Exactly.
And those HVAC units are very nice toys and they're very expensive.
Indeed.
And if you can spend a couple thousand a year and add about 3 to 5 years life on it, it sounds like a win-win situation to me.
Exactly.
So, next question. Growing up, what did you want to be?
Um, I wanted to be an astronaut,
Did you
honestly.
really?
I did. Yeah.
So you came close by flying.
And, as close as you can get without actually getting to space. Yeah.
So maybe your next employer, we can sign that in the contract that they put you on one of Elon Musk's SpaceX or those his and send you to space. That's
Yeah.
interesting. An astronaut.
Hmm.
That's very interesting. So with your son is transitioned into a new role now that he's medically discharged.
Hmm.
Does he still come to you and say, "Pops, I need some wisdom"?
Yeah. All the time, honestly. It's some, funny stories about that, really. It was like he bought a condo and he had to buy his own washer and dryer, and he went to go buy a washer and dryer, and he says, "Do washer and dryer really cost $1,000? Like, that's ridiculous." And I'm like, "Yeah, the cheap ones do." Like, you know. So, it's funny in a way as kids get older and they start to like have to have needs, right? How they experience the world differently, right? And relate to, things that happened at home, right? They always had a washer and dryer at home, so they never knew any different, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And it's funny because I jokingly tell my boys, I'm like, when you're 18, if you're not in school or in the military, you're not going to get my checkbook anymore.
uh-huh.
So here's the way I typically end a show, and it's one of those questions that is going to make you think for a second. What is the one question I did not ask you, Tim, that I probably should have known to ask you?
Oh, well, I mean, huh. Probably, I would say how facilities and a strong facilities department benefit a brand.
You got 2.5 minutes. Let's tell them.
I mean, I've seen both things happen. I've seen companies try to go to, outsource facilities. I've seen people, try and get away without a facilities department at all. Um, and, I've seen those companies run $1 million over budget where they were before when they stopped, right? Having a facilities department. So, facilities people are knowledgeable. They're able to make quick decisions that help to keep restaurants or buildings functional, keep your business open, reduce your costs for your maintenance and your overhead, and maintain your equipment and keep your capex down, right? Your assets viable, right? And so without a facilities department, like I said, I mean, I've seen people overpay for plumbing jobs in the range of $30,000 over what they should have paid. I've seen, people, trash their HVAC equipment within 3 to 4 years and have to replace, 20, $30,000 units. Um, I've seen people put in the wrong kind of system, right? Where, I've seen people put in an Aeon system and use custom made software and it didn't work, right? Like the Aeon system requires its own tools, you know what I mean? So when you Frankenstein a system together like that, you'll have problems forever. Um, I've seen people choose lighting systems where, the maintenance of those lighting systems is 20 times what it costs for a different lighting system because it was cheaper on the front side, right? And so the reality is having a strong, knowledgeable, and experienced facilities team will save you money every single day.
That's a good point. And I always from my restaurant background, I always talk about it's almost like with training. What you put into your training is what you're going to see come out the other side. And a lot of people will short training because they think it's ineffective dollars, so to speak. And it's the
Right.
same way with facilities. Uh,
Yeah.
that money you put in the beginning, you're going to see the long time reward. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this show right now, if you're looking for a facilities director and this Marine sounds like the one you want, reach out to me. I'll put you in contact with Tim. And Tim, once again, thank you for your service. Thank you for joining me on the show. And go Army.
Ah, come on. Say hoorah. Right?
Bye, guys. We'll see you.